20 years had passed since that magical autumn, when 8-year-old Marcus Chen befriended an injured alien in the woods behind his grandmother's house. Now 28, Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Physics, staring at equations on a holographic display that would have seemed like science fiction to his younger self. The pendant Zara had given him hung on a chain around his neck, hidden beneath his shirt. He had never told anyone about that incredible encounter, not even his grandmother before she passed away 5 years ago, who would have believed him. A lonely child's imagination was a more reasonable explanation than actual first contact with an extraterrestrial being. Yet Marcus had never forgotten a single detail of those 3 weeks. Zara's musical voice, her luminous eyes, the way she had looked at humanity with such hope despite her own tragic past. Those memories had shaped his entire life's trajectory. His fascination with space, his doctoral thesis on theoretical faster-than-light communication, his current research into quantum entanglement across vast distances. All of it stemmed from those conversations by the old cabin. Dr. Chen? His research assistant, Sarah, poked her head into the lab. The morning briefing is starting in 5 minutes. Marcus nodded, saving his work and heading toward the conference room. The Princeton Institute was at the forefront of humanity's push toward the stars. They had developed the first practical fusion drives, designed the orbital platforms that would become humanity's stepping stones to other worlds, and pioneered the quantum communication networks that allowed near-instantaneous contact across the solar system. Today's briefing was about humanity's most ambitious project yet, the first manned mission to Proxima Centauri. After decades of sending unmanned probes, they were finally ready to send human explorers to another star system. Marcus was part of the team designing the communication systems that would keep the crew in contact with Earth during their decades-long journey. As he entered the conference room, Marcus noticed an unusual tension in the air. Director Patterson stood at the head of the table, her face grave. Around her, the other senior researchers looked equally concerned. "Thank you all for coming," Patterson began without preamble. "I'm afraid we have a situation that requires immediate attention. At 0347 hours this morning, our deep space monitoring stations detected multiple objects entering the outer solar system at velocities impossible for any known natural phenomena." A holographic display materialized above the table, showing the outer reaches of the solar system. Red dots appeared near the orbit of Neptune, moving in formation toward the inner planets. "The objects are artificial," Patterson continued, "large, approximately 2 kilometers in length each, and there are 12 of them. They're decelerating, which suggests they intend to stop somewhere in our system." Dr. Williams, the xenobiology specialist, leaned forward. "Are we looking at first contact?" "That's the assumption we're operating under," Patterson replied. "The President has been informed, as have the other major powers. We're coordinating with NASA, ESA, and the Chinese Space Agency to formulate a response plan." Marcus felt his heart racing. Could it be? After all these years, were humans finally making official contact with alien life? His hand unconsciously moved to the pendant beneath his shirt. "Dr. Chen," Patterson said, and Marcus realized she had been speaking to him. "Your work on quantum communication makes you essential to this project. If these are indeed alien vessels, we'll need the most advanced communication systems possible to attempt dialogue." "Of course," Marcus managed, his throat suddenly dry. "Whatever you need." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. The alien vessels, for that's what they clearly were, had positioned themselves in a defensive formation around Jupiter. They made no aggressive moves, but they also didn't respond to any of humanity's attempts at communication. Radio signals, mathematical sequences, even music. Nothing generated a response. Marcus worked around the clock with his team to adapt their quantum communication array for possible alien contact. The technology was still experimental, but it represented humanity's most sophisticated attempt at instantaneous interstellar communication. If the aliens had similar technology, they might be able to establish a dialogue. On the 4th day, everything changed. Marcus was alone in his lab, running final calibrations on the quantum array, when every piece of electronic equipment in the building suddenly activated. Computers came online, displays flickered to life, and speakers crackled with static. Then cutting through the chaos came a sound that made Marcus's blood run cold. It was the deep harmonic tone of alien ships powering up their weapons, But these weren't the ships around Jupiter. These new signals were coming from much closer, inside Earth's atmosphere. Marcus ran to the window and looked up to see something that took his breath away. Descending through the clouds above Princeton was a massive vessel, easily the size of a city block. Its hull was a dark metallic gray, bristling with weapon emplacements and defensive screens. It was nothing like Zara's organic, beautiful ship. This vessel was built for war. As the alien dreadnought settled into a hover pattern above the Institute, smaller craft began launching from its bays. These fighters swarmed through the sky like angry wasps, their engines screaming as they took up positions around key facilities. Alarms were blaring throughout the building as staff and students evacuated. Marcus stood frozen at his window, watching humanity's first official contact with alien life unfold as an invasion. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. In all his dreams and theories, first contact had been peaceful, hopeful, filled with the same wonder he had experienced as a child. Then his phone rang. The caller ID showed only static, but Marcus answered anyway. What came through the speaker was a voice he recognized, though it was distorted and filled with pain. Marcus. Zara's musical tones were barely audible through the interference. Marcus Chen, I am sorry. I tried to stop them, but I was too late. They have found your world because of me. Zara. Marcus gripped the phone tightly. Zara, is that really you? What's happening? The hegemony, she said, and Marcus could hear the anguish in her voice. They tracked my ship's quantum signature. They know I was here. They know about the kindness you showed me, and they see it as weakness to be exploited. Through the window, Marcus watched as the alien fighters began targeting military installations visible on the horizon. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the evening sky. They seek to make examples of worlds that show compassion to their enemies, Zara continued. But Marcus, listen to me carefully. I am coming. I have spent 20 years gathering allies, building a fleet, preparing for this day. The debt I owe you, the promise I made, I will honor it. A promise, Marcus asked, then remembered. If you ever truly need me, I will come. But this was backwards. He wasn't the one in need. No, my friend, Zara said, as if reading his thoughts. It is humanity that needs me now, needs us. Your species stands at a crossroads. The hegemony sees only a young race to be conquered or destroyed. But I know better. I know what humans are capable of when they choose to protect what they love. The line crackled with static, and Zara's voice faded. Hold fast, Marcus Chen. Tell your people that hope comes with the dawn. And Marcus, thank you, for everything. The connection died. Marcus stood alone in his lab, the pendant warm against his chest, watching alien warships darken the sky above his world. But for the first time since the invasion began, he felt hope. Somewhere among the stars, his childhood friend was coming home, and she was bringing help. The abandoned cabin had once belonged to a hermit named Old Pete, who had lived there decades before Marcus was born. His grandmother had told him stories about the eccentric man who had chosen solitude over society. Now, the small wooden structure served as the perfect hiding place for an injured alien. Marcus helped his new friend settle onto the old cot in the corner, which was surprisingly still intact despite years of neglect. The creature moved with obvious pain but maintained a dignity that impressed the young boy. As evening fell, Marcus realized he would need to return home soon or his grandmother would worry. I have to go, he said reluctantly, but I'll come back tomorrow with more supplies. Food, water, maybe some better bandages. The alien nodded, those luminous eyes studying Marcus with an intensity that was both flattering and slightly overwhelming. You show great kindness to a stranger, young Marcus. Marcus paused in gathering his things. How did you know my name? I don't think I told you. A sound that might have been laughter escaped the creature. Your species broadcasts emotions and surface thoughts more clearly than you realize. I mean no intrusion. It is simply how my people perceive the world. Your name, your care for your grandmother, your loneliness at school, these things shine from you like light. Rather than feeling violated, Marcus felt oddly comforted. Finally, someone who truly understood him. What's your name? The creature was quiet for a long moment. My name in your language would be difficult, but you may call me Zara. Zara, Marcus repeated, liking the way the name felt on his tongue. Are you really from another planet? Another star system entirely, Zara confirmed. I was. exploring this region of space when my ship encountered difficulties. I managed to reach your world, but not without cost. Over the following weeks, Marcus established a routine. Every day after school, he would tell his grandmother he was going for his usual walk in the woods, then make his way to the cabin with supplies. His grandmother, bless her understanding heart, seemed to sense that something important was happening but asked no probing questions. She simply made sure his backpack was always well stocked with extra food and supplies. Zara recovered quickly, much faster than a human would have. Within a week, the wound had healed to barely a scar, leaving Marcus amazed at alien resilience. But rather than leaving immediately, Zara stayed, and Marcus began to understand why. "I have been alone for so long," Zara confided one afternoon as they sat by the small stream that ran behind the cabin. "My people are formal, proper. We do not often form personal attachments. But you, Marcus, you simply saw someone in need and helped without expectation of reward or explanation. This is rare in any species." Marcus skipped a stone across the water, pleased that he managed 4 skips. "My grandmother says that's just what decent people do. Help when they can." "Your grandmother raised you well," Zara said, and Marcus detected a note of sadness in the musical voice. "I lost my family when I was not much older than you are now. I have been searching the stars for purpose, perhaps, meaning. What happened to them?" Marcus asked gently. Zara was quiet for a long time, watching the water flow. "War. My people are ancient and proud, but we are not numerous. We have enemies who see our gifts as threats. My family died protecting our world, and I fled. I have been running ever since." Marcus felt a fierce protectiveness rise in his chest. "That's awful. I'm sorry that happened to you. You need not apologize for the actions of others," Zara said, but Marcus could hear the gratitude in the words. As the days passed, Marcus learned incredible things about the galaxy beyond Earth. Zara spoke of worlds covered in crystal forests that sang in the wind, of space stations the size of cities orbiting binary stars, of species that communicated through color, and others that existed partially outside normal spacetime. In return, Marcus shared his own world, the simple beauty of autumn leaves, the satisfaction of a well-built treehouse, the comfort of his grandmother's stories by the fireplace. "Your species is remarkable," Zara told him one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "Most young species are focused entirely on conquest and expansion when they reach the stars. But you have something precious, compassion without condition, kindness without calculation." "Not all humans are like that," Marcus said honestly. "Some people at school are pretty mean. But you are," Zara said simply, "and that gives me hope for your species' future." It was during the 3rd week of their friendship that Zara made an announcement that filled Marcus with both pride and dread. "I must leave soon," Zara said as they shared the peanut butter sandwiches Marcus had brought. "My ship has completed its self-repair protocols. I have duties to my people that I cannot ignore indefinitely." Marcus had known this day would come, but that didn't make it easier. "Will I ever see you again?" Zara reached out and placed a long, elegant hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I do not know, young friend. The galaxy is vast and my path is uncertain, but I want you to know that these weeks with you have meant more to me than I can express. You have reminded me that there is still goodness in the universe." The next day, Zara led Marcus to a clearing about a mile from the cabin. There, partially hidden under cleverly arranged branches and leaves, was the most incredible sight Marcus had ever seen. The ship was sleek and organic-looking, like it had been grown rather than built. Its surface was the same iridescent color as Zara's skin, and it hummed with barely contained energy. "This is beautiful," Marcus breathed, walking around the craft in wonder. "It is a living ship, grown from the coral trees of my homeworld," Zara explained with obvious pride. "It thinks and feels after a fashion. It chose to bond with me when I was very young." Zara began preparing for departure, running elegant hands over the ship's surface in what looked like a farewell caress. Then she turned to Marcus and knelt so they were at eye level. "Marcus Chen of Earth," she said formally, "you have shown me kindness when I was lost, compassion when I was wounded, and friendship when I was alone. In my culture, such debts are not forgotten. I swear to you by the light of the crystal throne and the memory of my ancestors, that if you ever have need of me, I will come." She pressed something into Marcus's hands, a small pendant that seemed to be made of the same living material as her ship. It was warm to the touch and pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "Keep this safe," Zara said. "If you ever truly need me, hold it tightly and speak my name. I will know wherever I am in the galaxy." Marcus clutched the pendant, tears stinging his eyes. "I'll miss you." "And I will miss you, brave little human," Zara said softly. "Remember what I have told you about your species. You are special, Marcus. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." The ship rose silently into the evening sky, its form becoming nothing more than a star among stars. Marcus stood in the clearing long after it disappeared, the warm pendant in his hands and the memory of friendship in his heart. 8-year-old Marcus Chen had always been different from the other kids in Pine Valley. While they spent their afternoons playing video games or watching cartoons, Marcus preferred exploring the dense woods behind his grandmother's house. His parents often worried about his solitary nature, but his grandmother understood. She would pack him small lunches and remind him to be home before dark, trusting in his careful nature and sharp instincts. On this particular autumn afternoon, the October air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Marcus had ventured deeper into the forest than usual, following a barely visible deer path that wound between towering oak trees. The canopy above filtered the sunlight into dancing patterns of gold and shadow, creating an almost magical atmosphere that made him feel like he was walking through a fairy tale. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the peaceful forest. It was a low, pained whimper, almost like a wounded animal, but somehow different, more complex, more intelligent. Marcus paused, his heart racing as he tried to locate the source of the sound. His grandmother had taught him to be cautious in the woods, but she had also taught him about compassion. Following the sound, Marcus pushed through a thick cluster of ferns and emerged into a small clearing he had never seen before. What he found there would change his life forever, though he wouldn't understand the magnitude of that change for another 20 years. Lying against a moss-covered boulder was a creature unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, even in his most vivid dreams. At first glance, it appeared to be roughly humanoid, but clearly not human. The being was tall and slender, with elongated limbs that seemed both fragile and graceful. Its skin had an unusual iridescent quality, shifting between pale blue and silver depending on how the light hit it. Most striking were its eyes, large luminous orbs that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and at the moment considerable pain. The creature was obviously injured. A dark viscous fluid that Marcus assumed was blood seeped from a wound on its side. Its breathing was labored, and when it noticed Marcus, it tried to move away but clearly lacked the strength to do so. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the small human boy and the mysterious alien being. Marcus felt no fear, which surprised him. Instead, he felt an overwhelming wave of empathy. This creature was hurt and alone, just as he sometimes felt hurt and alone when the other kids at school called him weird for preferring books to sports, or for spending time by himself in the woods. Without really thinking about it, Marcus stepped closer. "Hey," he said softly, the way he might approach a wounded bird. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's large eyes fixed on him with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. Marcus could swear he saw recognition there and something else. Surprise, perhaps even hope. Slowly, carefully, Marcus approached and knelt beside the injured being. The wound looked serious but not fatal. Marcus had helped his grandmother tend to injured animals before, and while this was clearly no earthly creature, the principles seemed similar. He pulled off his small backpack and retrieved the first aid kit his grandmother always made him carry. It contained basic supplies, bandages, antiseptic wipes, and small scissors. As Marcus began to clean the wound, the creature remained perfectly still, though he could sense its tension. The injury appeared to be from some kind of energy weapon, leaving edges that were both burned and torn. Marcus worked with the careful precision his grandmother had taught him, cleaning away the strange blood and applying antiseptic as gently as possible. "This might sting a little," he murmured, the same words his grandmother used when tending to his scraped knees. The creature's eyes never left his face, and Marcus had the strangest feeling that it understood not just his actions, but his words as well. After cleaning the wound, Marcus carefully applied gauze and tape, creating a makeshift bandage that would at least protect the injury from dirt and infection. He then pulled out his water bottle and offered it to the creature. After a moment's hesitation, it accepted the bottle with hands that were similar to human hands but with longer, more delicate fingers. As the creature drank, Marcus noticed other details. Its features were almost ethereal in their beauty, with high cheekbones and a narrow jaw that gave it an aristocratic appearance. Despite the obvious differences in species, there was something undeniably regal about this being, as if it were accustomed to respect and deference. "Are you lost?" Marcus asked, settling back on his heels. "I don't know where you're from, but you're not from around here, are you?" The creature studied him for a long moment, then slowly shook its head. When it spoke, its voice was like music, melodic and layered with harmonics that seemed to resonate in Marcus's chest rather than just his ears. "I am far from home," it said, each word carefully chosen. "Farther than you could imagine, young one." Marcus felt a thrill of excitement mixed with wonder. He was talking to an actual alien being, but rather than being frightened or trying to run for help, he felt a deep sense of protectiveness toward this wounded stranger. "Well, you can't stay here," Marcus said practically. "It gets really cold at night, and there are bears sometimes. My grandmother always says that when someone is hurt, you help them first and ask questions later." The creature's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. "Your grandmother sounds wise. She is. She's the smartest person I know." Marcus glanced at the sky, noting how the light was beginning to fade. "Can you walk?" "There's an old cabin about half a mile from here. It's been abandoned for years, but it's dry and hidden. You could rest there until you're feeling better." The creature attempted to stand and managed it with Marcus's help, though it was clearly still weak. Together they made their slow way through the forest, Marcus serving as both guide and support. As they walked, Marcus chattered about the woods, pointing out interesting plants and explaining which berries were safe to eat, treating his alien companion like any new friend. Neither of them spoke of the larger implications of their meeting, but both seemed to understand that something significant had begun in that small clearing among the autumn leaves. The first day of the invasion was a nightmare of coordinated precision. The hegemony forces struck simultaneously across the globe, targeting military installations, communication hubs, and government centers with surgical accuracy. Their weapons were beyond anything humanity had developed. Energy beams that could slice through the strongest materials like paper, shields that deflected even nuclear weapons, and atmospheric fighters that moved with impossible speed and agility. Marcus had remained at the Institute despite the evacuation orders. As one of Earth's leading experts on quantum communication, he felt a responsibility to help coordinate humanity's response. The basement levels of the building had been converted into an emergency command center, where military officials worked frantically alongside scientists to understand their enemy. General Harrison, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, stood before a wall of displays showing the global situation. Red markers indicated hegemony positions, while blue markers showed human resistance points. There was far too much red. "Status report," Harrison barked as Marcus entered the command center. "Beijing has gone dark," reported Colonel Martinez. "The entire Pacific Fleet is either destroyed or scattered. European command is holding for now, but they're taking heavy casualties." "What about the alien ships around Jupiter?" Harrison asked. "Still there, still not responding to communication attempts," Martinez replied. "It's like they're waiting for something." Marcus approached General Harrison. "General, I received communication from someone who might be able to help. Another alien faction that opposes these invaders." Harrison turned to him with desperate hope in her eyes. "Dr. Chen, at this point I'll listen to anyone who has ideas. What kind of help are we talking about?" Before Marcus could answer, every screen in the command center flickered and was replaced by the same image. A figure in dark, elaborate armor standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a massive starship. The being was tall and imposing, with angular features and cold, calculating eyes. When it spoke, its voice carried an accent that suggested intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. "People of Earth," the figure began, "I am Commander Vex of the Hegemony Third Fleet. Your world has been marked for conquest due to its harboring of enemies of our empire. Resistance is futile. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your fastest ships cannot match our slowest fighters." The image shifted to show footage of the devastating attacks. Cities burning, human military forces being systematically destroyed, civilian populations fleeing in panic. "However," Commander Vex continued, "the hegemony is not without mercy. Surrender now, submit to our rule, and we will spare your cities. Continue to resist, and we will reduce your world to ash and memory." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. 24 hours, General Harrison said quietly. That's what he's giving us. General, Marcus said urgently. The person I mentioned. She's gathering allies to help us. But we need to hold out until they arrive. She? Harrison raised an eyebrow. Dr. Chen, exactly who have you been talking to? Marcus took a deep breath. There was no point in hiding it anymore. 20 years ago, I helped an injured alien who crashed in the woods near my home. She was fleeing the same people who are attacking us now. Before she left, she promised that if I ever needed her help, she would come. For a moment, Marcus thought General Harrison might have him arrested for mental evaluation. Then her expression shifted to something between desperation and determination. At this point, Dr. Chen, I'm willing to believe in fairy tales if they might save the human race. What do you need from us? Time, Marcus said simply, and a way to show them that humanity won't go down without a fight. Over the next 18 hours, humanity proved exactly that. Despite being vastly outgunned and outmaneuvered, human forces across the globe mounted a resistance that surprised even themselves. The key was that humans had learned to fight dirty during centuries of warfare against each other. In New York, subway tunnels became launching points for guerrilla attacks against hegemony ground forces. The aliens' advanced technology struggled with the maze-like underground networks that had never been designed for warfare, but worked perfectly for it. In Australia, military forces used the vast outback to their advantage, drawing alien fighters into costly pursuits across terrain that favored defenders who knew every rock and valley. In Switzerland, the old Cold War bunkers that had been mothballed for decades suddenly came back to life, providing hardened positions from which human forces could coordinate attacks on alien supply lines. The hegemony had expected to face conventional military opposition from a unified world government. Instead, they found themselves fighting dozens of separate resistance movements, each adapted to local conditions and tactics. It was like trying to fight a hydra. Cut off one head and two more appeared. Marcus coordinated much of this resistance from his position at the Institute. His quantum communication array, originally designed for interstellar contact, proved invaluable for maintaining contact between scattered human forces. The aliens could jam conventional radio, but they hadn't encountered quantum entanglement communication before. Dr. Chen, came a transmission from a resistance cell in Tokyo. We've identified a pattern in their patrol routes. They're avoiding areas with heavy electromagnetic interference. Copy that, Tokyo, Marcus replied, sending that data to all cells. See if you can use it to predict their movements. Similar reports came in from around the world. The hegemony forces were powerful but predictable. They followed protocols designed for conquering conventional civilizations, not the chaotic, adaptive resistance that humanity was mounting. As the 24-hour deadline approached, Commander Vex appeared on screens worldwide once again. This time, his cold confidence had been replaced by barely controlled rage. Your resistance is pointless, he snarled. You have cost us resources and time, but you have only delayed the inevitable. Since you refuse our mercy, you will receive none. The bombardment of your major cities begins in 1 hour. The transmission cut to external cameras, showing the massive hegemony ships moving into bombardment positions above Earth's major population centers. The weapons they were charging could turn entire cities into glass. This is it, General Harrison said grimly. Whatever help you're expecting, Dr. Chen, it better arrive soon. Marcus gripped the pendant through his shirt. It had been warm for hours now, pulsing with increasing frequency. She's coming, he said, though he wasn't sure if he was trying to convince Harrison or himself. 57 minutes into the hour deadline, every piece of detection equipment on Earth screamed warning simultaneously. Something massive was approaching from the outer system, moving faster than anything had a right to move. The quantum communication array in Marcus's lab suddenly activated on its own, and a familiar musical voice filled the command center. Marcus Chen of Earth, Zara's voice carried strength and determination that hadn't been there during their last conversation. I told you that hope would come with the dawn. Look to the sky, my friend. The Alliance has arrived. On every screen showing space-based cameras, new contacts began appearing. Ships that defied easy description. Some sleek and organic like Zara's had been, others crystalline and angular, still others that seemed to be made of pure light. They came from every direction. emerging from faster-than-light travel with weapons already charged and shields raised. "This is Queen Zara of the Alliance of Free Worlds," came the broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying an authority that made Marcus's heart swell with pride for his childhood friend. "To the hegemony forces terrorizing this world, you have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from Earth space, or you will face the consequences of threatening those under Alliance protection." Commander Vex's response was immediate and predictable. "You cannot stop the hegemony, exile. Your ragtag collection of refugees stands no chance against." His transmission was cut short as the first Alliance ships opened fire. The battle for Earth had truly begun. The space battle that erupted above Earth was unlike anything in recorded human history. From the command center beneath Princeton, Marcus and the military staff watched in awe as ships from dozens of alien species engaged the hegemony fleet in three-dimensional combat that spanned from the orbit of the moon to the edges of the asteroid belt. Zara's alliance was a revelation in itself. Marcus counted at least 15 distinct ship designs, each representing a different species that had joined together against hegemony oppression. There were the elegant, flowing vessels of Zara's people, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent weapon systems. Crystalline ships that looked like living gemstones fired beams of pure energy. Others appeared to be constructed from solidified starlight, phasing in and out of normal space as they attacked. The hegemony fleet, despite their earlier arrogance, was clearly caught off guard. They had expected to face a primitive human defense, not a coordinated assault by advanced alien civilizations. Their formation began to break apart, as Alliance ships used tactics the rigid hegemony commanders had never encountered. "Quantum channel open," Marcus announced as his equipment detected an incoming transmission. "It's Queen Zara." The main screen shifted to show the bridge of what was obviously the Alliance flagship. Zara appeared and Marcus barely recognized his childhood friend. She wore armor that seemed to be grown rather than forged, its surface reflecting the lights of the bridge like living metal. Her bearing was regal, commanding every inch the queen she had become. But when she smiled, Marcus saw the same warmth that had characterized their friendship 20 years ago. "Hello again." "Marcus," she said. And despite everything happening around them, Marcus felt that familiar sense of wonder. "I apologize for the delayed arrival. It took longer than expected to convince some of our allies that your species was worth defending." "Thank you for coming," Marcus managed. "All of you. We couldn't have held out much longer. Do not underestimate what you have accomplished," Zara replied seriously. "Your resistance has been remarkable. My tactical officers analyzed your defense patterns, and they are unlike anything in our databases. Most species either surrender immediately to the hegemony or fight conventionally and lose quickly. You have fought with creativity, adaptability, and most importantly, unity, despite diversity." Through the viewports, Marcus could see the tide of battle shifting. The Alliance ships were smaller in number than the hegemony fleet, but they fought with coordinated precision that spoke of experience gained from many such battles. More importantly, they were inspiring the human forces below. "All resistance cells," Marcus broadcast on the quantum network. "Alliance forces are engaging hegemony ships above major population centers. This is our chance to hit them while they're distracted." The response was immediate and devastating. Human forces that had been hiding in bunkers, sewers, and wilderness areas suddenly emerged with a ferocity that caught the hegemony ground troops completely off guard. Without air support from their ships, the alien infantry found themselves facing an entire planet full of angry humans who knew every back alley, maintenance tunnel, and hidden path in their territories. In London, resistance fighters emerged from the underground to assault hegemony command posts. In Moscow, Spetsnaz units that had been lying dormant struck at alien supply depots. In São Paulo, civilian militias armed with improvised weapons proved that technological superiority meant nothing in close-quarters urban combat. "Your people are extraordinary," Zara observed, watching the tactical displays. "Most conquered worlds become passive once the orbital bombardment begins. Your species becomes more dangerous. We're stubborn that way," Marcus replied with fierce pride. The space battle reached its climax when Commander Vex's flagship attempted to ram the Alliance command ship in a desperate suicide attack. Marcus watched in horror as the massive hegemony dreadnought accelerated toward Zara's vessel. its hull glowing with the energy of overloaded engines. But Zara was ready for him. "All ships. Formation Omega," she commanded, and the Alliance fleet responded with practiced precision. The organic ships of her people suddenly began to glow, channeling energy to the flagship. The crystalline vessels aligned themselves to focus their beams, while the light ships phased into positions that created a three-dimensional geometric pattern around the command vessel. When Commander Vex's ship struck, it hit not just Zara's flagship but a collective shield generated by the entire Alliance fleet. The impact was spectacular, lighting up half of Earth's sky. But when the energy dissipated, the Alliance ships remained intact while Vex's dreadnought was nothing but expanding debris. The remaining hegemony ships, seeing their commander destroyed and their ground forces in retreat, began to withdraw. Within hours, the last enemy vessel had fled Earth space, leaving behind only wreckage and the memory of humanity's first interstellar war. As the immediate crisis passed, Marcus found himself standing on the roof of the Institute, looking up at the Alliance fleet that now orbited peacefully above Earth. Transport shuttles were beginning to descend, bringing medical aid and technological assistance to repair the damage from the invasion. Dr. Chen, General Harrison, joined him on the roof. "I've just received word from the UN Security Council. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Alliance, and they've requested that you serve as Earth's primary liaison." Marcus nodded absently, still watching the ships above. "General, did you ever imagine that first contact would happen like this?" "Honestly, I always figured it would either be peaceful scientists or an overwhelming invasion force that would crush us in hours," Harrison admitted. "I never expected it to be both, an invasion that brought us friends." A familiar humming sound made them both look up. Descending toward the Institute's landing pad was a ship Marcus recognized, not Zara's current flagship, but something very similar to the vessel he had seen depart from the forest clearing 20 years ago. It was smaller than the warships above, more elegant, clearly designed for personal transport rather than battle. "I believe your friend wants to see you," Harrison said with a slight smile. "Permission to come aboard, Dr. Chen?" Marcus laughed, feeling suddenly like that 8-year-old boy again. "I think that decision is up to her, General." The ship settled onto the landing pad with barely a whisper of displaced air. A section of its hull simply flowed aside, revealing an opening that pulsed with soft, warm light. Standing in the doorway was Zara, no longer wearing her battle armor but dressed in flowing robes that seemed to be cut from starlight itself. "Would you like to see how far I've come since you found me bleeding in your forest?" she asked, extending a hand toward him. Marcus looked back at General Harrison, who nodded encouragingly. "Go on, Dr. Chen. I think humanity can spare its first alien liaison for a proper reunion." As Marcus walked toward the ship, he felt the pendant against his chest pulse one final time before going still. The promise had been kept, the debt repaid. But somehow he knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. "I have so much to show you," Zara said as he reached the ship's entrance, "and so much to learn about what your people have become." "We've got time," Marcus replied, stepping aboard an alien vessel for the first time in his life. "After all, I think Earth just became a much more interesting place to live." The ship rose silently into the night sky, carrying two old friends toward whatever adventures awaited among the stars. The space battle that erupted above Earth was unlike anything in recorded human history. From the command center beneath Princeton, Marcus and the military staff watched in awe as ships from dozens of alien species engaged the hegemony fleet in three-dimensional combat that spanned from the orbit of the moon to the edges of the asteroid belt. Zara's alliance was a revelation in itself. Marcus counted at least 15 distinct ship designs, each representing a different species that had joined together against hegemony oppression. There were the elegant, flowing vessels of Zara's people, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent weapon systems. Crystalline ships that looked like living gemstones fired beams of pure energy. Others appeared to be constructed from solidified starlight, phasing in and out of normal space as they attacked. The hegemony fleet, despite their earlier arrogance, was clearly caught off guard. They had expected to face a primitive human defense, not a coordinated assault by advanced alien civilizations. Their formation began to break apart, as Alliance ships used tactics the rigid hegemony commanders had never encountered. Quantum channel open, Marcus announced as his equipment detected an incoming transmission. It's Queen Zara. The main screen shifted to show the bridge of what was obviously the Alliance flagship. Zara appeared and Marcus barely recognized his childhood friend. She wore armor that seemed to be grown rather than forged, its surface reflecting the lights of the bridge like living metal. Her bearing was regal, commanding every inch the queen she had become. But when she smiled, Marcus saw the same warmth that had characterized their friendship 20 years ago. "Hello again, Marcus," she said. And despite everything happening around them, Marcus felt that familiar sense of wonder. "I apologize for the delayed arrival. It took longer than expected to convince some of our allies that your species was worth defending." "Thank you for coming," Marcus managed. "All of you. We couldn't have held out much longer. Do not underestimate what you have accomplished," Zara replied seriously. "Your resistance has been remarkable. My tactical officers analyzed your defense patterns, and they are unlike anything in our databases. Most species either surrender immediately to the hegemony or fight conventionally and lose quickly. You have fought with creativity, adaptability, and most importantly, unity, despite diversity." Through the viewports, Marcus could see the tide of battle shifting. The Alliance ships were smaller in number than the hegemony fleet, but they fought with coordinated precision that spoke of experience gained from many such battles. More importantly, they were inspiring the human forces below. "All resistance cells," Marcus broadcast on the quantum network. "Alliance forces are engaging hegemony ships above major population centers. This is our chance to hit them while they're distracted." The response was immediate and devastating. Human forces that had been hiding in bunkers, sewers, and wilderness areas suddenly emerged with a ferocity that caught the hegemony ground troops completely off guard. Without air support from their ships, the alien infantry found themselves facing an entire planet full of angry humans who knew every back alley, maintenance tunnel, and hidden path in their territories. In London, resistance fighters emerged from the underground to assault hegemony command posts. In Moscow, Spetsnaz units that had been lying dormant struck at alien supply depots. In São Paulo, civilian militias armed with improvised weapons proved that technological superiority meant nothing in close-quarters urban combat. "Your people are extraordinary," Zara observed, watching the tactical displays. "Most conquered worlds become passive once the orbital bombardment begins. Your species becomes more dangerous. We're stubborn that way," Marcus replied with fierce pride. The space battle reached its climax when Commander Vex's flagship attempted to ram the Alliance command ship in a desperate suicide attack. Marcus watched in horror as the massive hegemony dreadnought accelerated toward Zara's vessel, its hull glowing with the energy of overloaded engines. But Zara was ready for him. "All ships, Formation Omega," she commanded, and the Alliance fleet responded with practiced precision. The organic ships of her people suddenly began to glow, channeling energy to the flagship. The crystalline vessels aligned themselves to focus their beams, while the light ships phased into positions that created a three-dimensional geometric pattern around the command vessel. When Commander Vex's ship struck, it hit not just Zara's flagship but a collective shield generated by the entire Alliance fleet. The impact was spectacular, lighting up half of Earth's sky. But when the energy dissipated, the Alliance ships remained intact while Vex's dreadnought was nothing but expanding debris. The remaining hegemony ships, seeing their commander destroyed and their ground forces in retreat, began to withdraw. Within hours, the last enemy vessel had fled Earth space, leaving behind only wreckage and the memory of humanity's first interstellar war. As the immediate crisis passed, Marcus found himself standing on the roof of the Institute, looking up at the Alliance fleet that now orbited peacefully above Earth. Transport shuttles were beginning to descend, bringing medical aid and technological assistance to repair the damage from the invasion. Dr. Chen, General Harrison, joined him on the roof. "I've just received word from the UN Security Council. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Alliance, and they've requested that you serve as Earth's primary liaison." Marcus nodded absently, still watching the ships above. "General, did you ever imagine that first contact would happen like this?" "Honestly, I always figured it would either be peaceful scientists or an overwhelming invasion force that would crush us in hours," Harrison admitted. "I never expected it to be both, an invasion that brought us friends." A familiar humming sound made them both look up. Descending toward the Institute's landing pad was a ship Marcus recognized. Not Zara's current flagship, but something very similar to the vessel he had seen depart from the forest clearing 20 years ago. It was smaller than the warships above, more elegant, clearly designed for personal transport rather than battle. "I believe your friend wants to see you," Harrison said with a slight smile. "Permission to come aboard, Dr. Chen?" Marcus laughed, feeling suddenly like that 8-year-old boy again. "I think that decision is up to her, General." The ship settled onto the landing pad with barely a whisper of displaced air. A section of its hull simply flowed aside, revealing an opening that pulsed with soft, warm light. Standing in the doorway was Zara, no longer wearing her battle armor but dressed in flowing robes that seemed to be cut from starlight itself. "Would you like to see how far I've come since you found me bleeding in your forest?" she asked, extending a hand toward him. Marcus looked back at General Harrison, who nodded encouragingly. "Go on, Dr. Chen. I think humanity can spare its first alien liaison for a proper reunion." As Marcus walked toward the ship, he felt the pendant against his chest pulse one final time before going still. The promise had been kept, the debt repaid, but somehow he knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. "I have so much to show you," Zara said as he reached the ship's entrance, "and so much to learn about what your people have become." "We've got time," Marcus replied, stepping aboard an alien vessel for the first time in his life. "After all, I think Earth just became a much more interesting place to live." The ship rose silently into the night sky, carrying two old friends toward whatever adventures awaited among the stars. Aboard Zara's personal ship, Marcus felt like he was inside a living organism rather than a mechanical vessel. The walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns, and the floor yielded slightly under his feet, adapting to his gait. It was beautiful beyond description, but what struck him most was how peaceful it felt after the chaos of the invasion. "Your ship is incredible," Marcus said as Zara led him through corridors that curved and flowed like arteries. "It's grown, hasn't it? I mean, literally grown. Ships of my people bond with their pilots as children," Zara explained, running her hand along the wall affectionately. "This vessel and I have been companions for over 3 decades now. She remembers you, actually." As if responding to her words, the walls around Marcus began to glow more brightly, and he could swear he felt a sense of recognition, even welcome, emanating from the ship itself. They emerged onto an observation deck that offered a stunning view of Earth below, and the Alliance fleet above. Marcus counted over 200 ships of various designs, all maintaining perfect formation despite their obvious differences in origin and technology. 20 years, Marcus said softly. "You've been building this for 20 years? Zara nodded, joining him at the transparent wall. "Your act of kindness that day in the forest changed everything for me, Marcus. For the first time since my family died, I had hoped that the galaxy could be better than what the hegemony was making it." She gestured toward the fleet. "I began with just my ship and a handful of refugees from worlds the hegemony had conquered. But word spread that there was someone fighting back, someone offering an alternative to submission or destruction. Species that had given up hope began to find their courage again." "Tell me about them," Marcus asked, fascinated by the variety of vessels visible through the transparent wall. Zara pointed to a cluster of crystalline ships that seemed to bend light around themselves. The Prism Collective. Their homeworld was strip-mined by the hegemony for rare crystals. They escaped in ships grown from the last of their world's crystal forests. Their vessels can focus stellar energy into devastating weapons, but they prefer to use that same technology for healing and communication. She indicated a group of smaller, more conventional-looking ships. "The Terran Republic. No relation to your world, the name is coincidental. They were the first species the hegemony conquered, over 1,000 years ago. They've been in hiding ever since, preserving their culture and technology while waiting for a chance to reclaim their freedom." Ship after ship, Zara described the Alliance members. The Void Dancers, whose vessels seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. The Song Weavers, who communicated through harmonic frequencies and whose ships literally sang as they flew. The Iron Heart Collective, cybernetic beings who had uploaded their consciousness into ships that were indistinguishable from their bodies. "How did you convince them to trust you?" Marcus asked. "I mean, you were just one person with one ship." Zara smiled, and Marcus saw a flash of the determined young alien he had befriended in the forest. I told them about you, Marcus. About a young human who saw a wounded stranger and helped without question, without expectation of reward. I told them about your grandmother, who raised a child to value kindness above safety. I told them about a species that might just be different. You base this entire alliance on one 8-year-old's good deed? Not just the deed, Zara corrected. The principle behind it. You see, most species in the galaxy operate on a simple premise. Strength conquers, weakness submits. The hegemony has built an empire on that principle, but you showed me a third option, strength used to protect rather than conquer. Through the observation deck's communication system, they could hear reports from the Alliance ships as they coordinated relief efforts with human authorities. Medical ships were docking at orbital platforms to treat casualties. Engineering vessels were helping repair damaged infrastructure. Cultural exchange teams were establishing first contact protocols with various Earth governments. This is moving so fast, Marcus observed. Yesterday we were alone in the universe. Today we're part of an interstellar alliance. Change often comes rapidly when the foundation has been properly prepared, Zara said. Your species has been preparing for this moment for centuries, even if you didn't know it. Your diversity, your adaptability, your stubborn refusal to give up when facing impossible odds. These are exactly the qualities the Alliance needs. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The air in front of them shimmered and a holographic figure appeared. Another alien, but unlike any Marcus had seen. This being appeared to be made of flowing liquid metal, constantly shifting and changing form while maintaining a roughly humanoid shape. Your Majesty, the figure said in a voice like wind chimes, the human governments have requested a formal audience. They wish to discuss membership in the Alliance. So soon? Zara seemed surprised. I expected it would take much longer to establish trust. If I may, Marcus interjected, I think you underestimate how much your actions today have impressed humanity. You came to help us when we were facing extinction. In human culture, that creates bonds that are very difficult to break. Zara nodded thoughtfully. Very well, Commander Flux. Please coordinate with Dr. Chen to arrange the meeting. And prepare the Chamber of Voices. If humanity is to join the Alliance, they should understand what they are becoming part of. The hologram bowed gracefully and disappeared. Zara turned to Marcus with an expression that mixed excitement with uncertainty. Are you ready to help your species take its first steps into galactic civilization? She asked. I'm terrified, Marcus admitted honestly. But yes, I'm ready. Though I have to ask, what exactly is the Chamber of Voices? Zara's smile was mysterious. Come, I'll show you. It's time you met the other founding members of the Alliance. She led him deeper into the ship, through passages that seemed to rearrange themselves as they walked. Finally, they emerged into a vast spherical chamber that defied the ship's external dimensions. The walls were transparent, offering a view of space that surrounded them completely. But it wasn't the architecture that took Marcus's breath away. It was the beings gathered within. Floating in the chamber were representatives of dozens of species, each more incredible than the last. Some were clearly biological, others appeared to be energy beings, and still others seemed to exist in states that challenged Marcus's understanding of matter and consciousness. The founding council of the Alliance, Zara announced. Every species here has a similar story to mine. They were helped by unexpected kindness when they needed it most, or they chose to help others despite personal risk. We are bound not by conquest or political necessity, but by shared values. A being that appeared to be made of crystallized starlight pulsed with gentle illumination. When it spoke, its voice resonated directly in Marcus's mind. Welcome, human. Your species has already proven its worth, through both courage in battle and wisdom in peace. We are honored to offer you partnership among the stars. The honor is ours, Marcus replied, still awed by the gathering. But I have to ask, what happens next? What does membership in the Alliance mean for humanity? Another being, this one resembling a tree made of flowing water, spoke in a voice like gentle rainfall. Growth, young human. Knowledge shared freely among peoples. Protection for the weak, justice for the oppressed, and the chance to build something greater than any one species could achieve alone. But first, Zara added with a smile, you have to survive the diplomacy. Tomorrow, representatives from every major Earth government will meet with the Alliance Council to discuss the terms of membership. I hope you're prepared for some very long meetings. Marcus laughed, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. I helped organize academic conferences. How much harder can interstellar diplomacy be? The assembled beings made sounds that, despite their alien nature, were unmistakably laughter. Famous last words, Zara said with fond amusement. But Marcus, whatever challenges lie ahead, remember this, you are not facing them alone. You never have to face them alone again. Looking around at the incredible gathering of species united by shared ideals, Marcus felt a profound sense of hope for humanity's future among the stars.